So hopefully the audio sounds better. We think we fixed it. As you can see, construction has happened.
Once again, more set details had to be changed in order for us to continue doing what we want to do.
Yeah, the microphones approached. They're encroaching. They're getting real close and personal with us. But hopefully that means nice crisp audio, no echo. We'll hopefully with them right here, kind of have a reminder not to blow out the microphones because we're hopefully not yelling right in your guys' faces with them right here.
Yes, intentional is to have a nice, consistent audio level and not be blowing out everybody's eardrums with either blowing out the microphones or echoing to hell. So hopefully this will be a much better setup. We have readjusted where our mounts are for our boom arms, so microphones are coming much closer. Not as much fidgeting around. You'll have to excuse my ADHD.
Yeah, so thank you guys for being patient. A lot of this is, yeah, we can fix little things, but a big part of it's just going to be practice of like
Yes.
keeping the mic in a spot to be able to hear it well, or at least keep it consistent. Because I think the audio has been coming through pretty good for the most part,
Oh,
apart
yeah.
for the echo.
There's
It's just
some issues.
consistency.
Yeah, it's just our consistency. We are trying our absolute best to make sure that our quality is up to par. So bear with us for a few episodes at least until we can nail that down.
Yeah, but hey, for the most part, the episode sounds good. I would say even the echoey bits, they're not terrible.
Oh yeah.
It just isn't what we would like them to be. But
Just a
we
little
appreciate
more.
you guys watching them, and we're gonna keep fixing, keep growing as we go. As you can see, this is the second episode, or we just finished recording the second episode, and we're
Yes.
still making adjustments.
It,
So
it'll be a constant update, and we appreciate you guys, sticking with us through this. If you want to see us get better and keep growing, as the old saying goes, smash that like button. Hit that notification bell. Hopefully, we'll see you in some more quality episodes coming up shortly.
yes, goodbye. Greetings and welcome to the Sorry You're Wrong podcast. Hopefully official episode 1. Today with me I got Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Hopefully, you are right. Hopefully, this will work out. No echoes, no glitches, no set problems.
Right, as the set falls apart around us.
Falls apart around me. Don't worry, we'll keep going. It'll just burn. It'll be fine.
All right, so we have a good episode today. We're gonna start with what we've been playing. Then we're gonna move on to a what game should you play from 2022. Give our top 5, some honorable mentions, all that good stuff. Then Kevin's got a weird game he's been playing for us, and I have a weird anime to try and interest you in. But before we hop into all of that, Kevin, what have you been playing this last little bit?
Why do I always do that?
It's staying in, folks.
Why
I'm not taking it out.
Not editing it. You see, I even sit here and I'm like, okay, let's do this. What have I been playing lately? A menagerie of games on Steam, because Steam sales are the greatest thing in the world. Unfortunately, Elden Ring has sucked me back in once again.
Again? Kevin?
Again. But honestly, no. The best game it's destroying my life. It's fun. It's simple. It's salt, too. If you like Sea of Thieves, but you hate Sea of Thieves, trust me, I hate you, Sea of Thieves. You shatter souls. You do. You make Dark Souls seem like a day at the carnival with your family. I mean, why? Why 4 hours of grinding just for someone to come and take it all from me? But isn't that the point of being a pirate?
Yeah, it'll definitely fuck with you.
Salt. Wonderful game. Wonderful single player game. If you want to just roam around the ocean, dig up treasure, fight off pirates on your own time, no real hassle, no big loss for dying. Wonderful game. Especially when you can just despawn and respawn your ship at will. Wonderful game. So Zenith, what have you been playing this last little bit?
So this last little bit, I have been losing more time than I care to admit to a little game called Monster Hunter Rise. And more specifically, I've surpassed base Rise, and I'm now in the expansion Sunbreak.
Always a momentous occasion
Oh
when
gosh.
you finally break over a vanilla game and get to that first
Well,
DLC.
because like Monster Hunter is insane for their formula this last little bit, starting or so I got introduced with Monster Hunter World, and so they have done this thing at least since World. Chat, let me know, down in the comments or whatever. What like was this a thing before? But so they started doing this little thing where base game, you go through low rank and then you go through high rank. And, when you're in low rank, the monsters have a certain move set, they have certain health, that kind of thing. Once you go to high rank, all of a sudden they have different moves. They got a lot more health, do a bunch more damage. All the stuff you expect from the monsters getting harder, even though it's the same monsters. But they also introduce new monsters once you get to high rank. So, it's a little mixed up. And then all the expansions jump you into master rank, which is basically twice as hard as high rank. like
Jeez.
like high rank, I have gone back a couple of times because it's like, oh, I need to go get some more crafting material from high rank so I can make these master rank weapons. Because you gotta do the progression through the weapons. And every time I hop back to high rank, I'm like, huh, they hit me and it did a 20th of my health. And then it's like, as soon as I'm in master rank, it's like, oh shit, I got hit. I gotta take a potion immediately, otherwise the next hit will kill me. It's like
That's the game.
it's like I have 2 shots before I'm dead. Like I need to recover.
You see that was a recent games pass update. Mortal Shell. That was my problem with Mortal Shell. It's just a Dark Souls, but oh man. I love Souls-like games. I do. I have way too much time in Elden Ring. I have spent way too much money on Elden Ring. There's not even any freaking in-game purchases in Elden Ring. I have just bought the game 4 times. 5, if you want to. No, I bought it 5 times. That's right.
All right, run us through them.
I bought one for myself. I had to buy it on Xbox. Then I bought it on PC. Then I bought it for my sister. And then I bought it for my wife. Okay, yeah, I bought it 4 times. And I think I only bought one of them on sale. And so I'm sitting there looking at my Steam, looking at my 2022 recap, and it says I have 360 hours into Elden Ring. And I'm like, well, certainly not rookie numbers. But then it dawns on me. That's just Steam.
Mm-hmm.
I had it on Xbox first. And it turns out I have roughly 400 hours in the Xbox Elden Ring. So my total time in Elden Ring has come out to roughly 700 hours. I had no idea I had played that game that much. No idea.
I was really, really hoping that when you said 400, I was like, oh, he did 100 hours on Xbox. And so, like, 400 is the total.
Nope.
Not the 400 is the total for Xbox, and then add in Steam.
You have to add them both together, and I've played Elden Ring roughly 700 hours. I don't know how I have done this.
I don't either. I don't know if I've hit 100 hours in Elden Ring.
I work a full-time job. How I've played that much Elden Ring is completely beyond me. And I mean, it goes with a lot of other games too, where I feel like I've played them a lot. I'm a big fan of a game called Elite Dangerous. Sea of Thieves in space, being brutally honest. But it's a lot of fun. I checked it out. It turns out I'd already dumped 100 hours into that game. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of surprising. And Kerbal Space Program, I've roughly 200 hours into. How does one play that much Kerbal?
Kevin, can I get you to do me a favor? Put your hand up like this, left hand. More towards the camera. He is married too.
Yeah.
He works a full-time job and he's married, and he's putting up these numbers.
Yes. And I have this many hours in the Elden Ring.
Kevin, do we need to talk about how many hours are you sleeping?
Oh, no. Sleep is for the dead.
That's what I was afraid of.
Sleep. No, I go to bed at like 8 o'clock every night.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I can't stay up. Last night, I think I stayed up till midnight, and that was a rough one. I woke up at 6.
Oh, body just used to it, huh?
Not only did I go to bed at midnight and wake up at 6, I had a few drinks last night, and I still woke up at 6.
See, that's so funny because like alcohol runs through me really fast. So like what I have to do to stay buzzed is insane. And so it's like really nice because like, it eases you into like, if like, alcohol makes you sleepy. It's just what it does.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But like I've never been like, oh yeah, I drank last night, so like it makes me sleep in. Like it's always like gone by the time like I'm about to fall asleep.
I'm just very conscious to make sure that I am sobering up when I go to bed. Because if I'm sobering up when I go to bed, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you've already taken care of the fact that you're probably dehydrated. Or if that weird chemical in your vodka gets to you or not.
Right. See, this is one of the nice things about, like, me and Kevin have a little bit of an age difference, but I'm still at that point where, like, I can be sobering up while I'm actively drinking. And so it's just like, you remember the days.
Yeah, I remember going to a bar, a number too many years ago, and now I never want to go back to a bar ever again because they're loud, crowded, and I can buy a bottle of alcohol for the same price as one drink at a bar.
Right. And that's the thing is I mix better drinks than,
Oh, absolutely.
any bar I'm going to go to because my God, like, is their drink a better, like chemical concoction of percentage of this to that?
No.
Probably better than me, but bang for your buck, like mine's gonna knock you on your ass better than theirs is.
That's it. It's like I'm not knocking mixologists for the incredible amount of drinks that they can make, but that's it. They can make this incredible array of drinks that panders to such a large group of people. But I want one drink. I don't need 100 drinks. I don't need to be able to make 100 drinks. All I need to do is be able to make the 3 drinks that I like and make them strong.
All right, guys. So we're going off the rails a little bit right here, but I want to know, Kevin, what are your 3 drinks?
Oh, okay. So, Moscow Mules.
Okay.
Vodka cranberry.
Okay.
And a mojito.
Okay.
The thing is, a mojito is a little bit too difficult to make, so that's the one you would get at the bar,
right?
Because you're like, okay, I'm gonna make this guy make this one for me. But a Moscow Mule is so easy to make.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
And depending on what alcohol, I personally like putting gin in my Moscow Mules over vodka. It's a better flavor. Just lime juice, whatever alcohol you're using, and some
You got it?
No, I think it's just and some ginger beer. Ginger beer, lime, and whatever alcohol you're using. 3 ingredients.
Yeah. Okay. So with those 3, I noticed you didn't mention one specific drink, and I'm going to see if I can get you to name this drink by just saying, this is a drink you should never order when you're not the one making it. What drink is it? Chat, I want you guys to throw in the comments. What one drink do you not order if somebody else is making it?
That's an interesting question. I've got nothing there.
Okay. So.
What? That somebody else is making. I mean, there's some weird name shots.
This is probably opinion, but I'll give my reason for it. I think this is, everybody I've talked to, once you say it, they're like, 100%, this is correct. Don't ever order this from somebody. A screwdriver. Because it sounds simple, right? Orange juice vodka. The problem is whenever you order a screwdriver, you never know what you're going to get because sometimes it's just orange juice. Sometimes it's just vodka. Like, there's no consistency in a screwdriver. Like, you can order a screwdriver from the same person 10 times. I will bet you 50% of those times you're getting a different thing than the last time.
That's an interesting thing because, like, that's one of those instances where I prefer to be a trash person. And what I mean by that is I like to get a single serving bottle of freaking orange juice. Mm-hmm. And you take a sip or 2 out of it, and then you replace the difference with whatever you're putting in there, whether it be vodka or gin. And it's just great. That's the perfect way to do it. You just take two little sips out of your little orange juice bottle and replace that with your alcohol. Perfect screwdriver every time. But it's trashy because, I mean, come on. You got a single serve orange juice every time you want one of these drinks.
Yeah, see, I just pour it. I'm more consistent than anybody that I've ordered from,
But then again, if you're also making it in the same glass repeatedly, you kind of have the same control. If you're using a whiskey tumbler style glass, it's always going to be the same increments that you put in for yourself. And so you hand that to the next person, they're going to be like, what the fuck? Man, why'd you put so much orange juice in here?
Yeah. All right, guys, but this isn't an alcohol podcast. Most of the
It's
time,
not.
I wouldn't even consider me or Kevin heavy drinkers.
No,
Like very light.
very rarely.
I I was a part of a D&D group for a while, and that was every Sunday I would sit there and it's like, oh, while I'm playing D&D, I'll like throw some back, that kind of thing. A little social lubricant, if you will.
Social.
And that was. It's like, oh, one time a week I drink, and like even then it's like it's not much.
That's a lot. It was like drinking once a week. I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of booze, my dude.
But yeah, so we typically, I wouldn't say are people who drink,
yeah,
but
yeah,
we found our way to this conversation. But don't worry, I'm gonna pull you over to the main topic of the show, and that is, what games should you guys have been playing in 2022? What games did you miss out on? Kevin, would you like to hit me with your honorable mentions if you have any?
Oh, okay. So I'm pretty sure this came out last year, and it's such a fun little game if you can get it to work. Gunfire Reborn. Amazingly fun little first-person shooter. You kind of run through the same series of bosses over and over, so it's kind of a loot farm game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest fan of loot farm games, but this one does it particularly well. You can't buy anything. So in-game currency is what you get. There's nothing you can buy. I kind of like that. I kind of like it when it's just a flat, this is what the game is. Enjoy it. Don't try and purchase your way through a game. But it's so much fun. Four people can play it in 4-person multiplayer. Wide variety of guns, but every playthrough is a little bit different. And playing by yourself, way more difficult than playing with your friends. And there's really no scaling. It's just difficult on your own and easier with other people. So that's a really fun side game. Free on Games Pass. Suggest. If it doesn't work, I apologize. It has to be the first game I start on my computer for some reason. And if it is not, all of my input devices will disconnect randomly.
That is so weird.
It is the craziest lag. I've never seen anything like it. It has to be the first game loaded in on my PC, or it just won't let me play the game. I'll get two steps in and my input will just drop. Whether it be my controller, my mouse and keyboard, it doesn't matter. It will drop.
Excuse me, guys. I'm dying.
Oh, the death. It's for real. So, you have any honorable mentions for the last year?
Yes.
Remarkable games.
So, when I gave this topic to Kevin, I forgot to clarify with him whether we were doing just every game from 2022 that we found interesting, or if we were doing a top 10. Eventually, we settled on a top 5 with honorable mentions. However, I started off with a top 10 list, so I have 5 honorable mentions.
Oh yeah, yes, by all means.
But first, I'm going to sit here and hack for a sec, so Kevin, I'll let you just vent.
You know what? I will go ahead and take that moment to talk about a game that didn't quite come out this last year, but was one of my favorite games of the last year. And that was Horizon Zero Dawn. That game was incredible. That game will suck you in, and you will want to do everything. You'll want to play that game twice through just to be able to climb up on the tall necks again. That game is so much fun. The reason I'm throwing it out as an honorable mention and less of a main game was because it came out in 2017. I play on PC primarily. I do have an Xbox, but I primarily play on PC. Mm-hmm. Sony let me have this game last year.
Thank you, Sony.
Sony let me have it. Finally allowed me to play this game last year. And I hate you for it. Because now, just as I beat it, Forbidden West came out.
Yep.
And I have been sitting here wanting nothing more than to play that game. And I'm not going to be able to.
At least not for another 5 or so years.
Exactly. Exactly. The time difference between 2022 and 2017 is, screw you. You're going to make me wait 4 years for a game that's already out? I'm not buying PlayStation. I won't do it. No offense to PlayStation people. I just spend enough money on my computer.
Right.
I'm not just not going to buy a new console when I have my computer, which is just more efficient, I guess.
It's just nice having all of your stuff in one spot. You don't have to
Yeah.
sit there and be like, like because that's I've talked about in our last episode that, which I guess technically that was the first episode, so this is the second one.
I guess technically yes. This would be the first our second episode. It's just the last one
Heck,
we had some audio difficulties.
but it's okay. It was fixed.
Yes.
But so like I talked about in the last episode, my dad was a big video game collector. But part of being a big video game collector back in the day was we sit here and it's like, oh, I want to play this game. Okay, I got to hook up the PS3 or the PS2 or the 360 or the this or the that.
You have to have a console collection to go with your game collection.
Yes, exactly.
Because if you don't, then you're just emulating everything. And as I personally don't see an issue with it, it's a hot button thing.
Yeah, Nintendo. See, we're just gonna sit here and just get on everybody.
Yeah.
But Nintendo video game preservation is a thing. If you are not going to do it, people will do it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you won't save archives of what you've created, other people will go out of their way to do it.
Right, and that's all I'm asking. Like, if you give me a legal way to go about it, then that's all there is for it.
Then 100% will, and that's why I even go out of my way sometimes to buy those ridiculous little handheld game stations that come with preloaded with
Right.
old school Nintendo games and things like that. So you don't have to go through all that trouble.
Alrighty, so my honorable mentions, in no particular order. We have Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
That's Kirby. Kirby.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't heard of a Kirby game since I was a child. I think Kirby and Dreamland was the last.
Which they're doing a remake to.
Are they?
Or maybe it was a sequel. I can't remember, but yeah.
Oh, exciting. I mean, I haven't seen a Kirby game since Kirby and Dreamland.
But really fun game, nice and easy on Switch. It's one of those awesome ones that, on the Switch you have your two Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
You can literally, hey, here you go. You take this Joy-Con, I'll take the other Joy-Con, and you can play it through like that.
Oh, see, that's a nice.
And so it's nice. You don't have to have multiple controllers, that kind of thing. It's just the two Joy-Cons.
I mean, those Joy-Cons are so tiny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been something. But next one, and I'm going short on Kirby because Kirby's Kirby. If you enjoy Kirby, Kirby is fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this one is super like iterative or that kind of thing, but it's a new Kirby. It's a new experience. It's a lot of fun. Music's really good in it. It's a fun one to play with your partner.
Sometimes it's nice when a video game just stays what it is, and it doesn't have to be go above and beyond.
Kirby didn't get dark and gritty all of a sudden.
Oh gosh, is that Kirby Noir?
Next one was Tiny Tina's Wonderland. This was kind of like a Borderlands spin-off. It had a really funny premise of the entire game is you playing a role-playing game, and you're playing as the characters in the role-playing game as like you have this omniscient DM like speaking everything to you. It was one, me and Laura never beat it, but it was one we sunk maybe like 20, 30 hours into it, and I would say if you can find it on sale, it's worth it. It's not necessarily, game of the year, that kind of thing, but it was one that I think that you should check out, especially if you want to play couch co-op with somebody. It's one of the few games that you can still play couch co-op.
That's an interesting way. I'm not a fan of Borderlands.
And
it's funny. I'm almost not a fan of Borderlands for some of the same reasons I was just praising Gunfire. Because it's a grindy loot game.
Yeah.
And where I think the difference there is just the sheer size of the game. Because I mean, like, Borderlands is huge. Pandora is huge. There's so much to do there. There's so many missions and things to do. But you just do them repeatedly. It's like, oh, hey, I killed that boss earlier. But you know what? I'm going to go back and kill that boss 14 more times. So he can drop that one gun that he has like a 5% chance of dropping every time I kill him.
Yeah, see, that was something that was nice about going through, and, we never made it to end game, so it's like the guns we got were perfectly doable for where we were in the story and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just when you decide you're going to play that storyline 15 times.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it's honorable mention, and it's not in my top 5. I wouldn't, honestly, I don't even know, like, if I made, like, a true top 10 list, if it would be in top 10. Up for like quality. This is more so like what games I think you should play. Because are there
Oh yeah.
better games out there that came
Oh,
out last year?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, game not on my list because, I also don't own a PS5. Consoles are expensive, times are tight, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to sit here, own a PC, an Xbox, and a
And the
PlayStation
PlayStation.
5.
Oh yeah.
But, God of War Ragnarok,
Oh,
it's not on my
absolutely.
list. I never got to play it. Did I watch it? It's an amazing game.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it definitely is.
I felt the same way
Is
about
it?
first God of War. It looked really good. I never
Mhm.
got around to playing it, but it looked wonderful.
Yeah, and it's one of those that is it a game that you need to go out and play because it came out last year? No.
Not
Have
necessarily.
you watched somebody play it? You've kind of experienced it,
Oh, absolutely. It's like, but if you haven't seen the gameplay for it, I definitely suggest going out and
For
just
sure.
maybe watching a recap of the game because
Yeah,
it's a good story.
exactly. But this, like I said, this is a list of games, you should play and not necessarily best games or that
Well,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
not also necessarily games you should just go out and watch somebody play.
Yeah. Another one along those lines, and you'll notice a lot of my games are ones that you can play multiplayer. Couch co-op multiplayer specifically. My next one, Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Oh my gosh,
Just a damn good Lego game. Like if you like Lego games, like it is both all the good things about the newer Lego games and all the amazing things about the old ones. Like it manages to perfectly meld those two in a way that I have not seen a Lego game manage to pull off in a long while.
that's interesting. I feel more nostalgia for Lego than
Mm-hmm.
anything, especially like I used to play. I used to have big tubs of them, even
Yeah.
that me and my dad would do. And so when it came to the games, it was never something I got too into, especially considering my love of Star Wars. Like I love Star Wars so much, but the games, the Lego games, I don't know why the disconnect was always there, but it was. But I mean, I love some of the stuff they do. I
Mm-hmm.
love the portrayal of Kylo Ren in the Lego games because come on, his lightsaber was that bad. It was that bad. And Lego was just like, no, we're not gonna pretend it was good. We're just gonna show you how bad it is.
Um, Another follow-up one. So this was one that when I was reading to Laura last night, my list, she laughed at me for including this one on games you should play. Diablo Immortal. Because it's a phone game. Technically, also released on PC, so that's why I give it a little wiggle room to fit in this list. But
It was a much anticipated game.
I see this is another one of those. Do I say you should spend 100 hours, 200 hours, grind for that end game, spend, $1,000 to get this one thing? No. But, I put maybe 50 hours or so into it, beating, the base game, some of like the higher rank stuff. And it was a perfectly enjoyable experience with me spending $0. And, it's one of those that it got a lot of criticism, but, am I saying, oh, hey, you need to beat this? No,
I feel like a lot of outrage comes out because it's just
it wasn't Diablo 4.
yeah, because it wasn't what people were expecting it to
Mm-hmm.
be, and it was when I found it for the first time, it was under the coming soon or pre-register section for it was on just on the mobile store,
Yep,
just on
that
the
was
Android store,
that was exactly my same
and
thing with it.
that's what got me. I really like those top-down games on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I've recently upgraded to a foldable phone, and it's great. Playing those games on there is just it's wonderful. I started replaying Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, and that's a fun game to play on a phone too.
Right.
And it's like that's a port that just it went well. And so I waited for months and months and months for this to come out. And to the point where when it finally did get released, because I had registered for it, I was supposed to get a notification saying it got released. I never did.
Oh,
It
interesting.
never notified me.
See, I had it set to automatically download as soon as it became available.
I just
And so
had-
one day I woke up and it was on my phone.
I think I saw it on the PC first. I opened Steam one morning and it was like, oh, Diablo Immortal. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I thought I was supposed to get a notification for this. I don't know if I shut it off at some, because I mean, I guess it's a real possibility.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I may have just shut off the notification, but I did play it for a little bit. I did play it on the phone because
Right.
No, I tried it on the PC, and I think I quit on the PC because it wasn't.
It wasn't really
It,
optimized
it
or made
wasn't.
for PC.
Yeah, it was
It was
not a
kind of like
PC
a
game.
it was a last like just like, oh yeah, try and get like serious players into it
Oh, right.
for those people who are like, oh, phone game bad. But
But phone games can be so much fun.
right.
Like,
It's the same thing with I'll get to a game later on my list that it's like sometimes being portable is a huge asset to a game.
oh, absolutely.
And then my last honorable mention before we hop into our actual top fives. This one actually I bounced back and forth between whether this be included on the list in place of one of my others or if it, fell to honorable mentions. And unfortunately, it fell to honorable mentions, but this game is The Quarry, which is the same studio who has done the Dark Picture games, but more specifically, this is the big team who did Until Dawn, which amazing horror game. And I would say The Quarry falls right up there in it too. I would say it is a lot of fun. Me and Laura played this one together. Um, you get to sit here and go through, make choices. Different stuff happens based on the choices. I can't remember what it was, but there was some article that came out after it was released that it was like there are like 500 different endings you can get based on
Jeez.
yeah. There's a lot of choices, and like it's one of the fun things about the game is so the multiplayer for it is basically I think they call it movie theater mode. And the movie theater mode is basically, or maybe it's movie night mode or whatever. But what it is you choose who gets to play as what characters. And then when it comes to be that character's time, it tells you, okay, pass the controller to this player. And so you pass the controller back and forth between us, that kind of thing. And you get to make decisions for that character. Problem is characters can die all the way through the story, like just based on bad decisions you make.
Oh,
And
geez.
so your list can get really small all of a sudden.
Ooh, so it's a you better try and play it and play it and get everybody's side quests done, or that person might die.
Yeah,
The
it's
Mass Effect style. There it is.
yeah. But what's interesting is because it's purely like a linear. And so like, based on like, oh, did you find this? There are like these tarot cards that you can find around that give you like glimpses into the future for like possible decisions and like how to quote unquote how to avoid them. It doesn't really end up looking that much like, oh hey, do this to avoid it. It just like shows you a horrendous way a character dies and you're like, okay, kind of take note of that area. I'm gonna try and avoid, this. I don't want, somebody to set the car on fire and have it explode or whatever.
Yeah.
But really fun game, choice based. It's super campy, like classic horror one. You literally are playing as camp counselors.
Oh, jeez.
And so it follows all the stereotypes, but it is a lot of fun. It is a great one to play.
I do love me some horror games.
I
I'm a
can't
big
recommend
fan.
it enough, especially like get you and Keitra playing it. Like it is so fun to play with each other, and like it was so great because like when it comes time to make decisions or whatever, I would just like hold silent until like Laura would make a decision, and I'd be like, oh, why'd you do that? Now somebody's gonna die. And she's like, why did you say anything before I was making the decision? And I was like,
Because I
oh.
needed you to make a decision.
Yeah,
It was
I
like
was
I didn't
like,
want
oh.
to influence that decision.
Right,
I just
and
wanted you
so-
to make your own bad decision.
But it's also funny because like there would be times where like we felt like it was a really important decision, so we'd like pause and we'd like talk it out, like, okay, what are we gonna do? And so it's fun to kind of strategize and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But really good. So now I've talked for a while about my honorable mentions, so we'll hop over to you. What is your number 5, with it being the not the worst, but the least good, and number 1 being the best?
So, as for my least good on my top 5 is actually going to have to be the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. Love them. Love them. Especially, I'm not going to sit here and say Final Fantasy VII was the best. It
And
wasn't.
This was a port to PC, right?
Yes, this
Okay.
was a port
Yep.
to PC.
Okay, just
Just
wanted
was
to
me
double check.
not being. It did come out before, but
Yeah,
I'm only able
but-
to play it now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to express two things: my sheer amazement at how it turned out, and my sheer disappointment. And almost the same thing. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
The base game's amazing. The fact that they changed just enough to where you don't know the story anymore
Right.
is great. The fact that they changed the characters. I have to give it to somebody who can make Cloud Strife a likable character. He has been the exact opposite his entire existence as a character. He has not been likable. He's a whiny little D-bag that you have to unfortunately drag through a story. But when I started to play the remake, I couldn't help but notice that he's different. And throughout this, quarter of the game, he is a wholly different person. And he becomes different through the new actions of the characters. And it makes him likable. You want to see what happens to him. You want to keep playing. And somehow the other characters just become more likable because they're either less or more inclusive. Just as a for instance, in the original game, there's a moment when you did the first job in the Mako reactor. They decided, they had a meeting to decide whether or not they were going to keep you around for the next job or not. They decide that they need your help in the original game so they can decide to keep you around for the next job. Not what happened this time. At this time, Barrett pretty much walks up to you with a sack of money and says, "Get out, I never want to see you again."
All right.
Yeah, and just not a big spoiler, just a little, but the way that changes the character of Cloud, that rejection, that shot to the invisible ego that he technically has built around himself, it just looks like it broke him down. And then he had like, fine, whatever, I'll make my own way. And the fact that it all still happens the way it's supposed to, they find a way to make that happen. And somehow they just did it incredibly well. But that brings me to, I have beaten it and played Yuffie's side of things. That I just do not understand. I just don't get it. I didn't even finish it. I think I got about halfway through. And I just lost interest. The first game was so good. And I was so excited to play Yuffie's side of that story. But it just, I'm trying to figure out exactly what part of it was so disappointing. And I can't quite put my finger on it. It just wasn't as exciting. I guess it was just a small snippet of a kind of boring story. And so I am excited to play the next one. Sony, if you'll please let me play it on PC, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, you have retrograde to look forward to in the meantime, in between.
Yes.
Which I believe is the prequel to 7.
Oh no, Crisis Core.
Yeah, because Retrograde is the Crisis Core remake, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Crisis Core the Retrograde is the Crisis Core remake, which I may or may not play if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
It was an okay game. I played it back on, I think it was on the PSP.
Yeah.
It was on. I surprisingly enough actually did own a PSP at one point in time just to play Crisis Core. And it was an okay game. So, I have discussed me finally being able to play the port of Final Fantasy VII Remake. What is number 5 on your list, then?
So this is going to be a kind of controversial one. But this was the one that I debated whether it was on the list over Quarry or if it fell into being one of the honorable mentions. And that is Elden Ring.
Okay, so Elden Ring appears on both of our lists. But I feel personally that there's a very good reason for this. I'm going to go ahead and let you give your explanation on why it would hit where it did on your list, and then I will give an explanation on why it hit where it did on mine.
So honestly, biggest problem is I played it on Xbox, and so I didn't have the true online mod to play with, and I had a squad of me, my Uncle Patrick, and my brother Zayden, and we tried to play this game as much as we could together, but my god, do they make it a fucking chore to play together.
Oh, yes. Yes, and again, you're playing on Xbox, so it was just the simple summon mode, wasn't it?
Yeah, yep, ooh. It was rough.
Ooh, especially if you only do bosses together.
Yep, and it was just one of those that it was like, I liked a lot of aspects about it, Um, it's still a game that I have installed on my Xbox, and occasionally I hop in there and when I feel like listening to a podcast or watching something while playing a game, I'll, flip it on and I will mindlessly go through a dungeon or this or that. But I think my problem was, and like the, hey, sorry you're wrong. This is a controversial opinion, but Elden Ring felt like a bigger but worse version of Dragon's Dogma.
Okay.
That got him. That got him. Oh no.
No, I actually kind of think you're right. You're kind of right. Here's the thing. Dragon's Dogma wasn't hard. It was a very fun game.
Until you got to Dark Arisen. My God, did the difficulty change?
Oh, absolutely. Dark Arisen was actually my favorite of the two. And because it was harder, I felt that even harder difficulties on Dragon's Dogma weren't exactly the hardest game. And if you want a challenge in that kind of game, it feels like there's no happy medium if you do enjoy that challenge.
Right.
Me, up until the last 3 years, I've played every Call of Duty. And I have a weird thing about beating them. I have to. And then once I've beaten them, I have to beat them on Veteran. And I have beaten every Call of Duty up to World War II on Veteran. Then they upped the stakes a little bit. And they started adding realism modes. Yeah, I've done it. Black Ops 3 made it unrealistic. One of the hardest games I've ever played. It took me 2 days. And a friend. Yeah, you should probably play it with somebody.
God, that takes me back to beating Gears of War on the highest difficulty.
Oh yeah. But once you like that difficulty in a game, if you're that kind of glutton for punishment that really likes to go out of your way to play games like that, Dark Souls games are fun. It's a challenge. Don't get me wrong. There are some clones. Lords of the Fallen is one of the hardest games I've ever attempted to play in my entire life, and I have uninstalled it and chucked it in the trash can.
Yep.
I'm just so mad at that game. But Elden Ring,
it somehow is getting a sequel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
After
Hopefully
never hearing anything about the original.
Tone it down. Dude, I made it a third of the way through that game before I kept getting punted off a freaking bridge. And I just, nope, done. Could not continue with that one. But Elden Ring is the least difficult From Software game.
For sure.
By an incredible margin.
Yeah, and that was my thing, is it wasn't even the difficulty that upset me. It was just more so I wanted to be able to play it with people, and also it was so big that the lack of what felt like a constant thread through the game was kind of disappointing.
Another thing that Elden Ring attempts to do is they leave everything very vague.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't really, don't get me wrong, the story's amazing. George R.R. Martin did an amazing job writing that story.
Just do your own goddamn work, George R.R. Martin. Can we get back to the books? But Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean, well, he wrote it years before they came out with it. At least as far as I could remember, I saw an interview with him, and he was like, yeah, I had actually very little to do with it. He wrote the story. They asked him for it. He wrote the story, gave it to them. And they were like, we don't really want you to write about what's happening in the game. We need you to write what happened a few thousand years before the events of the game. And so basically, Martin went through and just wrote all this amazing backstory and all of this super rich, deep lore that is so much fun to dive into. So if you are a fan of Elden Ring, there are many, many YouTube channels that love to deep dive into the lore of this game.
And this is why it's number 5 for me, is the fact that, I'm a big person I like the lore and that kind of thing. Like, I am somebody who's literally listened through and read all of the Codex entries in the Mass Effect series or Dragon Age series. Like, I enjoy lore and that kind of thing. I don't enjoy having to hop on YouTube to get somebody to fucking explain it to me.
Well, you see, I guess the interesting thing there is you don't have to. It depends on how you decide to play the game and who you talk to and how much you go around, because they'll give you the story. They'll tell you what the truth is and what happened. You just have to pay attention. And that's something that both irritates the living crap out of me, because I don't want to get through my story through item descriptions. And that's a big part of it.
Well, and also it's like, shit, I don't remember what somebody told me 2 hours ago because I've been doing this dungeon and this boss. So, like, what was the story bit they told me that I'm supposed to be picking up right here?
Exactly. But I also particularly enjoy the multiple endings.
Mhm.
Each ending feels like a very significant difference from the other ones.
Which I appreciate after, I think before we were recording, we were making jokes about Fallout 4, but, Fallout 4 endings very
Oh,
similar in
absolutely.
every state.
You have realistic options and realistic ways to end these really really messy, messed up situations that these
Mhm.
people find themselves in, and you can Mass Effect 3 it, or you can actually make it make sense. And for the world Elden Ring exists in, it makes sense. But I digress a little bit simply because my favorite part of Elden Ring is the combat.
Mhm.
I love fighting. I have made so many different builds. My favorite's just a sheer strength build. I like just rocking two giant crusher hammers because it's fun.
Mhm.
And it brings me into the seamless co-op. The unfortunate thing that you have not played is the seamless co-op,
Yep.
which came out broken. It scaled up so quickly that you couldn't even play the game. But as soon as they fixed that, now it is so much fun.
Mhm.
I uh I myself did a run through the game just so me and a couple of my friends could get the new game plus plus, so we could get more runes to level up. We're all in the 350s now,
Right.
and so like unfortunately, don't speedrun it. Do not speedrun Elden Ring. It'll burn you real bad, real bad. It burnt me out, and I've only been dabbling in it a little bit recently because they're like, "Oh, we need help doing something," so I'll hop over and I'll help a friend do something in the seamless co-op. But like that speed run, it'll kill you. It'll kill you.
So since you haven't been dabbling in it as much, what's your number 4?
My number 4. So this one's gonna be a bit more controversial, simply because I loved it. But a key figure in this game is not exactly the most favorable person at the moment. That's High on Life.
Oh yeah. Yep, that
Mm,
was
It's a little controversial, but I love it. I love it so much. It was such a fun game. It was so whimsical. It has so much replay value. I love the characters. The banter in conversations between your sister and Jean, it just makes me it just brings a smile to your face. It's so well done. I know that all this controversy, I'm not commenting on all that nonsense, but I'm happy to hear that things will continue without that person.
correct. Yeah, it was an interesting one. It was one that I played. I never beat it. I can't remember how far into it I made, but it was one of those that like I played it and I was like, okay, this is I understand what this is. It's not necessarily something I'm looking for, but I think this is going to be a perfectly enjoyable game for a lot of people. I
Oh,
think it
absolutely.
makes sense why it's in your top 5.
Well, absolutely, because it was great. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. There is there are so many games coming out this year though that are
Mhm.
just gonna blow last year out of the water.
Yeah, I think I think that our next episode where we do, the games coming out that we're
The
looking forward to, I
upcomings.
think unfortunately or not unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I think no matter what, it will be a top 10 list.
Oh, absolutely. Just
I
because there's
I
gonna be
think we're gonna have to
so
expand it,
much.
yeah.
I mean, even my top 5 for just this last year. Like I've even already mentioned my top 2,
Uh-huh.
simply because we had a small lull there, and I got me
Yeah.
talking about them. But
So, with that, my number 4, game that came to Games Pass, day 1 was couch co-op one that me and Laura played through, beat it, Escape Academy. It is very much like you were saying with High on Life. It's whimsical. It's really funny. It is a very interesting one of the so basically it's people who make escape rooms. They started working with a video game studio to be like, "Hey, let's make a video game about you go to a school that's entirely just escape rooms." and you can play 2-player, and you go through and you do all these, and there's like a mystery, and it's one of those really fun ones of like, guys, I'm sorry to say, there's no escape academy in the world. You're not going to go to a school where you just focus in escapology.
If you do manage to find that school, put it in the comments because I'm not gonna look.
But it's one of those that it does it's funny in the way that, like, a lot of times it's like, oh, it's funny because it doesn't take itself seriously. But this is the opposite, where it's funny because of how seriously it takes itself. Of like, there's literally one of the escape room puzzles that you do is basically you almost play as like the surveillance spy from like classic spy movies, where like you're the person who's going through like hacking the mainframes, and like you're guiding the agent on the field and that kind of stuff. And so it's like it goes super fucking hard sometimes, and it's just so funny. And then other times it's like, oh, you accidentally ate, something that was poisoned. Now you have to escape from this cafeteria, which for some reason has become an escape room, and find the antidote before you die.
Jeez. That's a little intense.
And so it's funny. It's got a very enjoyable story. The characters are hilarious. The teachers are hilarious. And it's just a good game. And I can't recommend it enough. It's a really fun one to sit down. It does a really good job of, it's accessible for people who aren't super into escape games and that kind of stuff. I would say it's easy enough for people to beat, but something that's also super nice is, so a lot of the levels you have time limits. And so let's say you fail a time limit.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing is the code to this door. You know what the password for the computer is. So you can sit there and like boop, 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 just jump yourself through much faster.
Yeah.
And so it's nice because you don't have to do all the same stuff you did, because you know where it is. So it's one of those that it's like, oh, if you fail, it's not the end of the world, because then you restart with your 30 minutes and the knowledge that you had. And so it's really nice because
that's nice. It's not
it
something that
makes it much
changes
easier.
constantly.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
keeps you having to guess repeatedly through different patterns and scenarios.
And so that's why I feel like it makes it on the list, because it is very accessible to people who aren't into escape rooms. It's got a really fun story, really fun art style. So that was my number 4. Kevin, how about you? What's your number 3?
My number 3 was actually the beginning. I was talking about a game that I've been playing recently, and it's Salt 2.
Wow.
Yes.
I was not expecting it to be on this list, let alone this high up.
Yes, it is. Here's the thing. There are different levels of attention you pay to a game.
For sure.
And it is very rare to find a game that is not meant to suck you in.
Mm-hmm.
That is not meant to dive you into some super immersive world. But it's a game that you can sit there and just play. And not have to worry about this or that or losing progress and Salt is one of those games. This is why I left it a little vague at the beginning of this episode, because I really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of what this game is.
It sounds like a classic podcast game, as I call them, where it's like sit down, chill, watch or listen to something, and just enjoy the loop.
Absolutely. Because the thing is, as far as map size goes, it's insane. It's insane. I have scrolled down on the map for at least 3 minutes and have not hit the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have not seen the edges of the map.
Well, because it's procedurally generated.
So I do believe so. There is no edge. You can go on for forever. It is just randomly generated islands. And each island is different. They can have old ruins. They can be pirate islands. They can be treasure islands. I found an island that was just burnt down trees full of giant spiders. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Left field. And there's a mission board where they have many missions that you can choose from. And you do these missions and you turn them in through mailboxes. So you don't have to remember islands.
Mm-hmm.
You can mark islands. And you have to use a sextant to figure out your position on your map. And you have to fill in islands manually as you find them. And it'll fill in your map slowly but surely. But let's just say you go into a dungeon. You're supposed to go kill this pirate king. You go into that dungeon and he just mops the floor with you. Who cares? You just show right back up. You show right up outside the cave or right back at your ship. And that's nice. You don't lose anything.
Right.
There's no stress that comes with it. And as much as I do love challenging, complicated games, it is really something to have a game that doesn't sit there and promise to be everything and end up being so little of what it actually promised. For a game to sit there and be like, no. This is a game for you to just sit, relax, and actually enjoy. And it is so wonderful. It is definitely it was a fight between number 3 and number 2 for me. Unfortunately, Elden Ring was so good, it did take my number 2 spot.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
So Elden Ring did take my number 2 spot. A little spoiler for my list there, but for all the reasons I said about the story and the lore, and I'm a person that dives into lore. I dive into lore hard. And I love it. Because I love it when a game leaves something ambiguous enough for me to continue learning. If it spells out the whole thing for you, then you just know it. And that's the end of it. But if they can build a world around their small game, I feel like they've done a lot more. And so if I go out of my way to like, oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I wonder what that person's backstory was. I wonder what if there was a little bit more information. I enjoy it. It's just like Halo. As a great, for instance, Halo is one of those games that they don't tell you everything. As a matter of fact, they intentionally tell you very little. Even though it seems like they're giving you a lot, they're actually giving you very little. Like, for instance, if you never read the books, all the extra characters in Halo 4 might be confusing, even though they all make perfect sense. They've all been a part of Master Chief's life, his entire life. But if you never read a book, or never read those books, or listened to those audiobooks, you would never really know who Blue Team was. And so that's just an optional piece of lore that you can just dive into on your own time, which is why Elden Ring took my 2nd spot. It's not overly immersive, but it's got a lot to it. What would be your number 3 and number 2 spot?
So my number 3 is very similar. It's kind of a brain dead game. You know, I'm not sitting here getting super into the lore, that kind of thing. It's just a nice one to... This is my, game that I was talking about earlier. It's enjoyable when games have mobility to them. And so this is one that I've been playing on the Nintendo Switch, Monster Hunter Rise. And this is a nice one at the end of the night. I'm laying in bed, I got YouTube or whatever up on the TV, and I'll just go slay, 3 or 4 monsters. And it's one that it's like, is it the same monsters a bunch of times? Yeah, but the grinding for, I need to cut off the tail of the monster this time. That way I can get the pieces to make, the pants that I want or whatever, to get these skills that will make me do more damage so I can watch the numbers go up. It's simple, it's satisfying, but the improvements that they've made to it, Overworld, which was my first introduction, is really big for me because one of the things about World is they made it to be an introduction for mainstream Western audiences and that kind of stuff. And so the monsters that they used are very simple, and they're ones that it's like, okay, these are the ones that will be popular with these audiences.
Yeah.
Rise, they're like, okay, they're interested in this game. So they put in some weird fucking monsters, and I love it.
It's got to be something, especially when you're talking about, like, country borders. Like, everything's a little bit different. Like, play a Japanese game and then play it after it's imported to the United States. It's good. It's so different.
Yeah. And that actually goes really well into my number 2, which was Persona 5, which was a game that, yes, technically hasn't been out on PlayStation for quite a while. Yeah, it was out on PlayStation 4. But guess what? It's finally out on Xbox and PC for the first time starting last year.
Yeah.
And I got to play it. It's a lot of fun. It is the things that I said last episode that I like about games. We got character choices, decisions that matter, building up relationships with people. It is phenomenal. It's also got that classic, JRPG, if you like turn-based combat, that kind of thing. It's got a really, really dense story. Like, I haven't beaten it. The people I talk to who have, like, you're talking like, oh, if you want to beat Persona 5, you're looking at close to 150 hours at the very least. And this isn't, one of those like, oh, I'm gonna go grind or that kind of thing. Like, yeah, sure enough, you can if you want, but uh, for the most part, it's a story game that takes 150 hours to beat. And so it's quite a bit of fun. It was my number two. It was one that I had been wanting to play for so long, and the fact that it finally came out and I was finally able to play it, and it lived up to the hype. I thought it was really good, and that was my number two.
There is a game. I'm trying. Oh, I just remembered it, and I do believe, if you'll give me a second to actually Google this, because I just want to see when it came out.
Yeah, Persona. It's awesome because so I bought Persona 4 when it was available on PC. But now we're sitting here in a golden age of Persona 5, Persona 4, and Persona 3 are all on Games Pass right now. And like they're available on PC as well. Like go out and play them. Like these are great games with really interesting different stories that, inevitably when it probably comes to my turn to do a weird game, they're probably going to pop up somewhere down the list cuz like are they great games? Yes. Are they weird? My god, yes. But Kevin, tell me about your number 1 or what you were just googling.
Okay, so now I will. I'm gonna go ahead and backpedal to one honorable mention because
Okay.
it's the reverse of what I've been saying. My number one game is a 2017 port over, and it is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Mhm.
It has everything that endears you to a game. It ties you to the characters. It ties you to what's happening. You feel so much for Aloy as she lives her life and as she goes through her struggles. And it leaves you wanting to know things just as bad as you want the character to be able to learn them. You start the game and you lose your father figure, devastating how it happens. Like it just how it all plays out is just it's heartbreaking. And I love it. Now, a little honorable mention is a JRPG that I did find recently. It came out in 2018, but it is now available on Xbox and PS5. It is a PC game that is now available on console.
I'm trying to think what this could be.
And it's a JRPG called Edge of Eternity.
Okay, yep. I've heard of this.
One of the best JRPGs I've played in the last 10 years. Easy. So good.
Mhm.
So good. Somehow they have the turn-based battle system down, even in a more modern JRPG, which is an interesting thing, especially if you like the time-based battle systems in older JRPGs, especially older Final Fantasies and things like that. Before they officially got real-time battle systemed. But it is such an interesting concept to a game. So
Just want to make sure I was thinking of the right game.
think of a slightly primitive Earth. And all of a sudden, aliens show up. They do not have hostile intentions, but instead they actually share with us. They build us up. Now we become a much more advanced society, but much more reliant on something else's technology. And that's a scary thought. And in the game, once we hit that point, the aliens decided they no longer wanted to share. And it was time to take everything back.
Mm-hmm.
And this started a war. And instead of directly fighting the war, the aliens eventually said, you know what? No, we're going to release this poison and it's going to infect people and slowly kill everyone. And your character is a military man who abandons his life in the military to come home and attempt to cure your mother with your sister. And the character development throughout the game is nice. And I'm big on character development. If you write bland characters for your games, why write a character at all?
Right.
One of the worst video game tropes that kills me is the blank main character.
Yeah, the silent protagonist, the blank character. Like it works in certain situations, like with a Skyrim or like a Monster Hunter or an Elden
Yes.
Ring, where it's like your character's not the focus.
Well, and a lot of the reason, a lot of times companies do that is it's just easier to not write a backstory and
Hmm.
solidify a timeline for a character, and you're supposed to be the character.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be you. You're supposed to imprint on this blank character so that and honestly, yeah, everybody did it in Skyrim. We all did it in Skyrim. We all played extensions of ourselves in Skyrim. Whether it was the person you couldn't be in real life, so you were just mean to everybody all the time, or you were me, and I still feel bad being mean to Skyrim characters. I think it took me 3 years to kill Parthenax. Why would you kill Parthenax? He did nothing to no one. He just wants to sit on his mountain. Why? No need to hurt the dragon. He's a good dragon.
Oh, Kevin.
But yeah, it gives you the story, that imprint. But I just don't like that. I like to have a flushed out character. I like to have real people that feel real for their situations. And that is definitely an Edge of Eternity thing.
Uh-huh.
They're very well rounded. They are who they are. They've been through their struggles. And so as you play them, their personalities and especially the way they interact as brother and sister is a unique and very nice game. It plays very well. The gameplay mechanics are also quite interesting. It takes you a while to get down because controller layouts are varying more these days.
Yes.
So you don't have the Call of Duty style permanently on controllers anymore. And I play PC, but I play with a controller.
Mm-hmm.
I play with a controller because controllers were meant to play games on.
Yeah.
Keyboards were not. Controversial opinion. But keyboards were not designed to play video games on. They were designed to work and do primary functions on. Surf the internet, type a message. Not play Doom Eternal. Oh my gosh, that is a hard game to play mouse and keyboard. I always fat finger the rest of the keys too. I end up just mashing out gibberish, and my wife is the opposite. She is hardcore, will not use a controller unless she absolutely has to.
That's funny. What is your number one?
So my number one was Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes.
And yeah, for all the reasons that make games good. I will boast that. It is good for all the reasons that make a standard game fun. Exploration, open world, character development. Like, there's one of the matriarchs in that game, and she's just not nice. Not nice to Aloy at all. All the time, kicking her down. Oh, you're just the motherless one. You're the cursed one. All of this. And even she has the development over time. Even she realizes that she's wrong over time. And then how they leave you in as much informational void as the character herself is. You only know what she knows. If unless obviously you played the game prior, if it's your first go through, you know what she knows. That's it. You learn as she learns it. There's no little tidbits that end up like spoiling things for you down the road. The character, like I said, the characters, even the side characters, are very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like you feel a lot for the people in their situations. Like there's one guy loses his sister in the middle of the story. And when that happens, like when she dies in his arms after he does everything he can to save her, it just destroys him, but it builds him back up to be the person he was supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
And how they play it out, it's so well done. The writing was well done. The animations were well done. The scenery is gorgeous. There are these tall necks, and you have to climb up on them in order to expand your map. But it is so cool to climb up these giant walking steel giraffes
Right.
to look at the world that they've built. and it's so much fun, and they do such a good job, and there's so much to do. The main game is fun, but if you want to stop and go do other things, you can. And when it comes towards the end of the game, it all comes back, all of it, and not in the way you think. When you go to stand up and it's you against the enemy, if you have been a good person, the people along the way that you meet will be there. They'll always stand by you. If you become the kind of endurable character that can tie people to them like a real person would. A real person goes on and they make such an effect in people's lives that other people will endear themselves. They'll always be there for you if you're that kind of person. And you can be that person or not. That's up to you. If you want to fight the world alone, you can, but you don't have to. And then when you decide not to, the characters that you meet along the way make it worth it. And especially once you hit the end of the game and you get to see the culmination of that effort, they make that really worth it. You make it very worth it.
It definitely gets a lot of heavy lifting, I feel like, from the fact they got Ashley Birch to do the main voice talent. Just phenomenal voice actress all around.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure. Google who the voice actor for Rost was. Because that guy,
ROST?
ROST, yeah. Because that guy, he did a phenomenal job. Like, you can see him raising this child to be the person that you inevitably play as.
JB Blanc.
I've actually never heard of him.
I feel like I recognize his name. Let's hop onto the good IMDb and see.
It's because I feel like his voice sounds familiar, but it's also just one of those really deep, like,
right. There's
raspy.
A fair bit of them.
Yeah. But it's a really good job. The voice acting all around, well done. Gameplay, so much fun. It's not a janky controller game either. I will say it is one of those games that once you've sunk in 50 hours and then you go to play something else, you're going to hit a wrong button. It's a controller confuser.
It's got its own kind of layout and style.
If there's an actual term for that, I would like to know, because I have always been curious. Is there an actual term for that controller confusion?
My gosh, I can't remember. So I've been playing a couple of games, and like I think that's a big one for like when you play games from Japan or that kind of stuff, is their controller layouts are so different. And so I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter, and so when I go to play some on the Xbox, I keep catching myself holding right bumper of all things to sprint. That's not sprint in most games.
You're playing Elden Ring. B, hold B is run.
Right.
You jump to any FPS after that. You're gonna try and hit the button, or you're gonna try and hold B and wonder why you're either meleeing or.
That's that's a funny one. Is so one I forgot to mention that I've been playing randomly. I've been playing Oblivion a lot lately when I'm not playing Monster Hunter, and so it's so funny because I'll like go to pull up my menu. B, not the menu in most games.
No. Oh no.
That's an interesting one. We never talk about that, but God, what was Bethesda thinking?
You know what's actually particularly interesting? In Salt, the B button is your main menu, like your main pause menu.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because the start and select buttons bring up like your main inventory wheels and your map.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a really weird choice by the game developers. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, you would think that B would be the
map or the inventory.
Right, the inventory was what I was thinking. But
yeah, but no, they made it to where that's just the start menu.
Alrighty, Kevin. So my number one game, released of last year, unfortunately, is a port. But it's one of those that it's like, Kevin, you got a fair bit of tech lying around, that kind of stuff. You got a original DS lying around?
Oh my gosh, no. So, in all honesty, I have never been a fan of portable game devices. I don't like them. I'm not gonna buy a Steam Deck. I've owned 2 Switches. One, I own a Switch Lite somewhere. It's around here somewhere. I had a Switch. I gave it to my sister because I do not like portable devices.
Oh man, see, I think it works for some things,
You're
but
right. I just think the applications are so rare
uh-huh.
for the need for that technical portability that like I don't play games while I'm laying in bed. If I go to bed, I'm going to sleep. I have my computer for my game.
Uh-huh.
So that's about as far as it goes. I just have no need for that portability.
So these games, I think one of them was originally on the DS, the other was on the 3DS. And they were released as a package on Games Pass on Xbox day one that they were ported. And these are ones that, yeah, technically they were available on PC for a little while and that kind of thing. But like hit mainstream, like, oh, they're available on consoles now, not just like, hey, you want to go grab an emulator or your DS out of storage.
Storage or
But
wherever you manage to.
yeah, that would be the Nonary game collection, which encompasses 999, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors, and um you have
You're gonna have to break this one down. I have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah, and then the second one that's a part of it is it's and the funny part is, so they're called Nonary game collection. None of them have Nonary game in it. It's the series is called Zero Escape, and so it was really confusing when like I'm looking it up. I think it's got to be like a port thing because of like it coming to like Western audiences or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they called it Nonary game because like technically the first two games are a Nonary game, whereas the third one is just called it's it's just a Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma is what the third one is called, but the second one is called Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward. And so these games are interesting in the aspect of, so this isn't going to precisely tell you what they are, but they basically, it's think of JRPG puzzle escape rooms. So it is this very, very elaborate story of, in the first game, 9 persons trying to escape from a sinking ship, and they have 9 hours to do it. And there are 9 doors strategically placed around the ship that they have to pass through. And the only way to pass through is you have these bracelets, you have number 1 through 9, and you need to math and add up your number to whatever number is on the door to go through. And you have to have a minimum of 3 people going through, and you're doing these escape rooms. But and so here's the thing is, so these will appear on when I do my weird games, but
Yeah.
that's going to be an in-depth look with notes and details. This is just off the top of my head, and like it's going to feel pretty detailed. But this game is the best I have ever seen time travel done in any media.
Huh.
I will say better than any TV show, movie, video game before, because one of the things
That's some bold claims. That's you're saying that this has a better. I'm gonna throw out a reference here.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me this has better time travel mechanics than Time Crisis?
Yes, I am. But so this game, the whole thing about it is you need to fail to succeed. And so the whole thing is depending on what doors you choose to go through, because there will be times where it's like, oh, you can choose to go through this door or this door based on your number, and whichever door you go through changes, where the groups are because math.
Because math.
And based on decisions you make, one of the primary things about the game is there is this branching path tree, and you can see there are different endings and that kind of stuff. But there are very specific things you have to do to get the actual ending. And you cannot start and get the true ending or the regular ending. If you start and you pick every correct decision to get to the ending, you will be stopped short because your character won't have information to proceed.
Interesting.
Information that your character would pick up if you went with one of the other paths. And so your character has to do these other paths and hit these bad endings, a lot of times dying, in order for you to jump back further into the timeline and proceed with this new information.
You see, I like that. I like that. That's a really good premise.
It is so good, and in the second one takes it even further.
Oh wow.
The second one takes it even further. We explore the idea of human consciousness. We explore the idea of time, basically. We explore the idea of, like, I'm pretty sure they literally, what video game at this point hasn't made a fucking butterfly effect reference of just like, butterfly flaps its wings and volcano goes off and kills millions. But we explore, the idea of what is it to be human. We explore the concept of cloning. The second game goes fucking bananas because instead of being on a boat, you are, as you find out later, because it starts off and you're like, oh, it looks like we're kind of in this warehouse. You are on a space station on the moon.
Oh, geez.
Because, and like I said, this is very surface level. Like, I'm going to go into details eventually with other things, but you are on the moon because the Earth has been fucking wiped out, and you are on the moon with these people solving these puzzles to basically build your character's ability to send their consciousness into previous versions of themselves so that you can prevent the Earth from being destroyed.
Jeez. You see, that's such an interesting concept because that actually reminds me of the game Soma.
Uh-huh.
Minus the saving the world part, it's very similar.
Yes. Kevin, these games, I am not kidding. These games are made for you. Like, the amount of like physics stuff they talk about and just like a collective consciousness that everybody can tap in, whether it's you believe in these psychic fields and that kind of stuff. It is insane. Like, and one of the crazy things about it is, for being a DS game, the voice acting talents they get. So, first game, not really a bunch of voice acting.
Yeah.
It was a DS game,
Yeah, early DS
but
game. They're not gonna
my God,
text based.
The second one, like, I'm talking, you have voice acting talent like Travis Willingham, who is Colonel Mustang from
Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist. You have Laura Bailey, who, like, fucking what hasn't she done? Like, you're either looking at Laura Bailey or Ashley Birch for, any like big female voice character.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
she is in it. Liam O'Brien is in it. Like, you have all of these like insane voice talents in the second one. And on top of that, how they managed to get such an amazing score on the DS is insane to me. Like, the music, especially for the second one, crazy good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into those ones because that sounds like a lot of fun.
And like I said, this is very surface level compared to like actually what happens, because like I said, there's a lot of timey-wimey, like sending your consciousness around and that kind of stuff.
A lot of confusing.
So, like, this sounds like I've spoiled a lot, but my God, like, maybe if you're like, oh, broad strokes, like, I didn't want to know I was on a space station, because the world's okay, but the whole like you like finding out why you were on the space station and how you were exactly going to manage to like save the world, because it is also such a weird thing of, so this is surpassing this topic, but you play the first game to have characters from the first game appear in the second game, some old, some young, and you're like, wait, why is this? Only for the second game for you to then basically travel back in time to the third game.
Oh, jeez.
Where you are then trying to save the world.
Gee, that's intense.
Yeah,
That's a lot. That's a lot to keep track of too.
But the crazy part is because of how good the storytelling is, it's actually like once you start like just getting everything, because like it starts off very confusing because it's like you're getting all these pieces, these fragments. But then as soon as you like start getting like you start doing the other branches, it's like, holy shit. Like
Damn.
this over here makes sense now.
Okay, like I said, it's definitely an interesting.
Yeah, this was honestly beyond like even just my number one for last year. Like this series is like
It's
up there with like Mass Effect for like game series for me.
like top games of all
Yeah.
time kind
Yeah,
of
like
game.
this
Yeah.
it is a really weird one. It's one that Laura absolutely hates because a very large part of it is, almost a visual novel of you like sitting here like, seeing this story play out in front of you. And then the other part is escape room puzzles.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting to kind of, like it's one that it's super fun if you are the one playing it. I don't know how fun it is for somebody to
You
just
watch
like
it.
watch it,
Yeah. Oh
which
gosh.
Laura did
Yeah.
not, but she doesn't like anime as much.
Yeah.
But it's very anime. So, kind of a weird game. And we've now talked about all of our weird ones, all of our, hey, this might seem a bit strange, but check it out
Oh yeah,
from last
definitely.
year. So Kevin, what has been your weird game that you've been playing for homework?
So this game I play on and off. I bought it as on a Steam sale. I suggest it. I really do. The name is going to throw you off a little bit, but it's not what it sounds.
Sounds like it's going to be a horny game.
Oh, it sounds like it will be. Today, I'm going to tell you about a little game called The Bang on Balls Chronicles. The Bang on Balls Chronicles. Here's the thing. It sounds dirty.
Than like some rooster and ball torture.
It sounds like something you would find on the skeevy back alleys of Steam. Like the ones where you have to turn off unintentionally set filters just to find. Kind of weird game. It sounds like it, but you'll see it right on your home screen. Because it's not dirty at all. As a matter of fact, it is simply historically inaccurate.
Not what I was expecting. I was thinking it's going to be historically accurate.
It's a history game where you play through situations that are blown wildly out of proportion. And I'm assuming everybody in the world has seen the what was the Poland ball memes?
Yes.
That's this entire game is built off that meme.
Okay.
The entire game is built off that meme. Every person in the game is just a ball flag. Hence the Bang on Balls Chronicles.
Okay.
And the gameplay style is much like an old PS1 game called Pac-Man World. Another wonderful game, by the way. If you've never had the chance to buy Pac-Man World, they did put it on Steam. So they remastered it and put it up on Steam. Really worth playing, especially if you like Pac-Man and 3D scroller games. But the Bang on Balls Chronicles is not what I expected it to be. It tells you in the description that it's a mildly historically inaccurate game. No, it's wildly blown out of proportion. I played my way through a Viking raid is one of the very first levels. And this Viking raid is ridiculous. Because you're just this ball rolling around with an axe and a shield. And you bump into things, smash into people, and keep going. But it's also incredibly hard to follow. It's an odd one. It's definitely something that I sat there and I tried to pull out in my head, how do I explain what this game is? Like, you're a ball in historically inaccurate events. I'm like, but imagine playing the French Revolution as a ball, and your only job is to cut everybody's heads off. But nobody has a head to cut off because they're a ball.
I see the problem.
Exactly. It's a very hard game to explain. But it is also wildly fun because it's almost a childish puzzle game. It's simple, yet somehow confusing. And if you ever are bored, look it up on Steam. It's definitely worth the playthrough, even if you don't beat it. I haven't beaten it. It's just something I go back to on occasion. And as I was sitting there earlier this week going, what weird game have I played recently, other than the ones I've talked about in the last episode? And it's like, what weird games have I played? And believe me, I've in the last few days hit a big Steam sale. So I have got some lined up for the next few episodes. Nickel and dime your Steam sales, people. You'll find the gems. If you see a game you're not sure of, but it is only 30 cents, I am in the category of just buy it. What's the worst thing? What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to find a game that's worth talking about on a weird podcast.
Yeah.
It definitely worth spending 40 cents.
That's always one of those that, like, I feel like you know what you're getting into when you spend that amount of money on a game.
Absolutely, because you're not going into it thinking AAA title right here.
Well, what's so funny is, okay, you click into a browser and you're like, okay, says this game is $1. And it's like, okay. That means two very different things depending on what browser you just clicked into. If you clicked into Steam, it's going to be what the fuck is this game going to be?
Who made this and
if
why?
If you clicked onto like an Android or an iPhone store, then it's like, oh, it's the remake of Final Fantasy Tactics, you know? It's just like, it is so wildly different what you can expect for $1 depending on where you went.
Oh, absolutely. At one point, you're getting a watered down nothing. And then you go to Steam and somebody slipped acid in your watered down nothing. But so many good Steam games.
We'll definitely be exploring that more as we go in the future. But I think it's time to do a little bit of weird anime.
Oof.
And I am here to sell you a weird anime, Kevin.
Oh yes, and I am all ears. These continuously get weirder with each anime he decides to. I don't even know where he finds these things. I'm talking about the back skeevy alleys of Steam. Let's talk about the back skeevy alleys of Crunchyroll.
Oh man, and it is a Crunchyroll.
Oh, that was a knee slapper.
Oh, I'm proud of that one. I'm real proud of that one. All right, so here's the problem, right? Is so eventually you hit a point where you've watched so much weird anime that you're like, you either do one of two things. Either you're like, it's not weird enough, or
the weird becomes normal.
Yes, and the second one is what happened to me. So I was sitting here last night really frustrated with myself because I was like, I've just been bouncing off of anime. I've been struggling to find one to watch and that kind of stuff. And I started one and I was like, okay, it's not as weird as I was hoping for and that kind of thing. And then I was like, wait, I've been watching an ongoing anime right now that it's in its second season. It started off as part of I think it was part of the winter season of anime and it's now part of the spring. Or maybe it was fall and now it's winter. I can't remember. I don't remember what anime seasons, but it's ongoing currently right now. It's an anime called Blue Locke.
Okay.
And so it's one that I've been watching not for the podcast or that kind of thing. Because in my head, I was like, it's not a weird anime.
You're like, no, I just like it.
The problem is the more you think about it, the more you're like, oh no, this is a weird anime. And as with most things anime related, I didn't realize it was a weird anime until I was telling my wife about it. So there's two ways I have managed to know whether an anime I consider normal is weird. And that is A, listen to it out loud, or B, tell my wife about it. And honestly, the listening to it out loud, it also is basically telling my wife about it because she'll just be like, "What are you watching?"
And he's like, "Oh well, I'm watching." Maybe forget that one.
Yeah.
Maybe just turn around, back out of the room, and forget I had to explain that.
And so this one, it starts off super normal sounding premise, you know. It's a sports anime, which, you know, for some people that's weird enough, you know, like watching sports
Yeah.
anime. It's kind of a weird category. It really depends. It's in all actuality, it's really a jump or a branch off of like shonen anime.
Oh no, yeah.
It's very much like our character needs to overcome stuff. He's going to always end up being, you know, powerful enough to continue moving forward and that kind of thing. You know, they're always going to overcome their stuff.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
classic shonen anime trope. And it's the same thing with sports anime. You know, sports anime for the most part are shonen anime.
Classic hero tales.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's one of those that it sounds very normal when I put it like this, right? Like, so the sport in question, soccer, which
I
it's a,
don't know why that would surprise me. It would make sense.
right?
Soccer's a pretty worldly game.
Yeah. And so the whole idea behind this is Japan has decided that they are tired of being a second rate team on the national level. It's been a really long time since Japan's been good at soccer. They're, you know, always okay at it, but they've never been good. And they've decided that what they're missing, they have a world class team, but they're missing a world class striker. Which, for those of you who don't know, in soccer, striker is basically your front position. It's the one that scores the goals. And so they've decided, hey, we're going to basically hold this camp, this competition to basically find the best striker. That way we can, you know, progress on the world stage and, you know, become hopefully world champions. This sounds fairly normal.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Problem is how they go about it. And so they go about it by basically, they're like, hey, we're going to give these letters offering people the opportunity to become national athletes for Japan to come play soccer for us. And they hit everybody from people who like their teams just lost nationals to people who are national champions to people who, you know, maybe they didn't even make it into those tournaments and they're just, you know, really good in their zone or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. I think it's something like they invite the 500 best strikers in Japan to come to Blue Locke, which is a building that is the Pentagon. It looks like
Jeez.
the Pentagon.
Yeah.
and
You have to come see the president to make sure that you're good enough at soccer.
and when you get there, there is this crazy dude. This guy is insane, and he is the one who this is his brainchild. He has created Blue Lock to not find the best striker in Japan, but to make the best striker in Japan. And so he basically gives them the option. You can come be a part of Blue Lock and have a chance at not only becoming a national athlete for Japan, but becoming the primary striker on the national team on the world stage. However, if you're going to take part in Blue Lock, if we decide you are not good enough or you get eliminated, you cannot play soccer ever again. It is a binding contract that you sign to where you give up all your dreams. You cannot, and these are high school people, so they have a chance to go on and play soccer for college. You know, a lot of them have scholarships and that kind of thing.
What an interesting like why?
And so it's like, okay, it's starting to get weird. Notice how I said starting.
Well, I mean, obviously it hasn't gone too off the rails yet. I mean, that's a weird premise. Like, oh, if you come to play for us and when you turn out to be bad, you can never play soccer again.
Yes. So you get a lot of different people, you know, kind of appear in this. And so then what they do is they have these really like high tech, basically they look like flight suits, but they're these skin tight suits that they basically examine all your physical levels as you are performing. So they like measure your exertion levels. And one of the biggest things about them is they have this patch on the shoulder where it shows you your rank out of 500, what position you are.
Well, I mean, no pressure or anything.
Exactly. And so then to start off, they put, I think they start with 13 or maybe it's 12 people in a room. And they're like, okay, I think it's 13. Only 12 of you get to move on to the next stage. One of you is eliminated right here. And they kick a soccer ball into the room. It, like basically panel opens in the wall. They're like in this racquetball court, and a gun launches a soccer ball into the room. And it's a game of hot potato. Last person hit with a minute, they're eliminated. So, it sits there and they're, kicking the ball at each other, trying to dodge, if they get hit, now they're trying to hit somebody, that kind of thing. And there's an opportunity where the main character we're following, he is the 500th ranked character in this. So he's at the bottom.
Yeah, standard show intro.
Yep.
Gotta overcome.
Yep, he's at the bottom. And so he has an opportunity where, oh, hey, one of the guys, as he's like running around trying to dodge, twists his ankle and is like prone on the ground with like 5 seconds left. And he's like, oh, his ass is gone.
Gotti.
Instead, he decides to, and this is where the main character in this is a bad guy.
Interesting.
And so he's like, oh, I could eliminate him. Or I can eliminate the person who's ranked as the best in this room and also happens to be the guy who was on the team that eliminated us from the playoffs this last year. And he fucking nails him and gets him kicked out of Blue Locke.
Ooh. So instead of taking out somebody middle of the pack, take out somebody top of the pack so you can take out the middle of the pack later.
And which is an interesting thing, because then what happens is they say, oh, hey, you 12 strikers, our next stage is we have 5 teams. And the teams are made up of, so you guys were 500 to 488 or whatever, however the math works out. So you guys are that, and the teams then proceed to go, so they're team Z or whatever.
Yeah.
And the teams then proceed to get better and better. And so it's, by, 5 teams removed, you're quite a bit away from 500. And so they then say, okay, so it's, basically a bracket where you will play every other team, and the team who has the least amount of points. So basically it's you get 3 points, you win, you get 2 points if you tie, and you get, 1 point if you lose. And so it's the team with the least amount of points at the end of this gets eliminated, the entire team.
Yeah.
Except for the person on the team who scored the most goals. And so then it's like, oh, not only are we competing against the other team, we're competing against each other.
Against your own
Because
team.
now all of a sudden, we're not passing the ball to each other, because it's like, oh, I'm not going to pass to him. He's got 3 goals and I have 4. If he scores, now he's tied with me. And if we lose everything, whichever one of us has the cleanest play, hasn't gotten any cards or that kind of thing, gets to move forward.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this competition within the group. But see, here's the thing, is so you have 12 strikers on a team, and they tell them, okay, play soccer against these other teams. You don't have anybody who's a goalie, anybody who's a defender. So you basically have to then also decide within the team, hey, who is willing to not score any goals and stand back and be a goalie? Is anybody going to be willing to do that?
Going to do that?
Because then it's like, okay, if our team is losing, now all of a sudden I need to be the one who scores the most goals. And so you go through and you have all this drama with that and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they managed to push through because they beat the best team. I think they lost literally every other game, because it turns out they had a rat amongst them who basically, he agreed with the other teams and he'd go find them and he'd be like, hey, you let me score this number of goals and I will tell you what our game plan against you guys is. Like, I will tell you what the pattern is, that kind of thing. And then once you guys get ahead, I will start playing for you guys. So it'll be 13 on 11 instead of the 12 on 12. And so then, we sit there and we overcome classic, anime, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
But then we hit, where they are in the current arc. And so they reveal, "Oh, hey, actually, there weren't ever 500 of you. Like we told you, okay, there were teams, this and this within, and there were 5 groups of these buildings." It's like, "Oh no, there's only the one building." And so then they show everybody their true scores and that kind of thing. And it drops down to a much lower number. And then and so basically they told everybody, they're like, "Oh, hey, you are the last, of the 500." Even if they were actually the first. That way everybody's like pushing themselves and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So that everybody had a low number, even though there was
Uh-huh.
like no 200 originals.
Right. And so then we hit where we are in the current anime season. Where so we've built up, we've played against a lot of teams. We know a lot of characters from other teams and that kind of stuff. And so for the second selection, as they call it, they put you in a room with an AI goalie, and the goalie has been given the information for every top goalie in the world, and you have, I think it's an hour and 30 minutes to score 100 goals. And if you do not, you are eliminated.
Jeez.
But then, once you do that, you then come out of this room and you are told, okay, pick 2 other teammates from people who have also passed. Any teammates. Could be people you win against, could have been people you beat, could have been people you lost. Form a team of 3, and then you're going to play a match of 3v3.
Okay.
First team to 5 wins, and the team that wins gets to choose who they want from the other team, and they then move up to 4, and the other team drops down to 2. And if a team that is at 2, then so they do a 2v2 match to try and get a third to do 3v3 matches again. But the team that loses in a 2v2 match, they pick a person and the other person is eliminated. Gets kicked off, basically.
Oh, jeez.
And so then we sit here and we hit the part in the anime where it's like, oh, we're strategizing, and within this, because it's sports anime and shonen and that kind of thing, everybody basically has superpowers. It's
Oh,
like,
of
oh,
course.
this
Yeah.
guy has a crazy mid-range kick where he can score a goal like pinpoint accurate from like 28 meters out or whatever.
Jeez.
And so then it's this big thing of like, oh, he's leveled up. He can do it from 30 meters out now.
Yeah, I gotta love that. You gotta love that. The leveled up.
Yep,
He
everybody.
leveled up.
Yep, everybody is in. What's interesting is they go back and forth between calling it leveling up and evolving.
Well, I mean, you gotta use all the tropes at your disposal, I
Yep.
guess.
And so that is where we are currently as we're going through. We're teamed up with a couple allies and a couple enemies from the previous season, which has been really interesting to
Okay.
see. And so it's been a lot of fun kind of seeing like, oh, we have pairings that like, oh, I didn't even think that that was an option, because it's like, oh, these people were on other teams, but their skills really complement, because they do a good job of like, there aren't a lot of characters that's like, oh, they do what this other character does.
Yeah.
Like it can be something so little as there's a character who his whole thing, their talent for being there, was they're really good at not being noticed and slipping behind defenders to where all of a sudden it's just them and the goalie.
Oh, geez. Well, okay.
And so like it's something as little as that to the main character, his whole thing, his special ability is vision. He can see the entire field and he can smell goals. And so it's one of these things where like he can, like, as stuff is happening, he can kind of see like, if I do this, it equals a goal.
I hate to do this, but I
And
need to pause real quick.
yeah. Yeah, so everybody has a different superpower, and it makes it kind of interesting because not only do they already have superpowers, but they're trying to figure out how to improve their superpower to become the best.
You gotta be the best supernatural soccer player.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's so ridiculous. And it just hits the point where I was like, no, this is a weird anime. Because also, as I told Laura, she has a trope that she hates in anime, which is the crazy eyes. We all know it. Like when a character like starts to lose it, and they get the crazy eyes.
Oh yeah, yeah,
This
absolutely.
anime is Crazy Eyes the anime because everybody wants to murder everybody else. They
Everybody needs to
all
die.
want to murder and eliminate everybody. And like there are points where our main character specifically does something to destroy somebody else's dreams.
Well, I mean, not everybody can be a good guy, and in certain instances, especially like a show like that, I don't think anybody can be the good guy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, except for the I don't know the main soccer team who are probably sitting there just waiting for this extra person to get chosen.
Oh my
so
gosh,
that they
and it's
can
going to be a
actually,
monster that they receive.
yeah, yeah, and they're just sitting there like, who do you think they're gonna pick? Like, can you imagine just sitting and waiting, and you're already on that soccer team, and
Uh-huh.
you're just like,
Yeah, cuz like so on top of so something that I missed is so this entire premise, it's all mind games. So like also depending on how many goals you score or if your team wins or not depends on what kind of food you get because it is an on premise like you are living here thing.
yeah,
And so like to basically the bare minimum you're required to live as a human to like the teams that are winning and scoring a lot are getting like steak and that kind of thing.
jeez.
Yeah, so it's like very much a be hungry, beat the other people because you want what they have.
It's either be hungry, lose and stay hungry, or
Yep,
be hungry, win and not be hungry anymore.
exactly. And so it's just it's so weird because it takes like a lot of normal things and it
Yeah.
just like pushes beyond.
It just pushes the limits of of what a normal freaking premise can be.
Uh-huh.
Because like you take a premise like soccer, and this is a pretty simple
Right.
premise.
And that's why I started off how I did because it's like, oh, it sounds normal. Japan wants to find the best striker to improve their team to be, but it's the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's because this crazy dude like behind the program to where they literally have like the government being like, yo, we're kind of giving you a lot of money, like AI goalies, like, whoo, man, really, this is an interesting thing to spend the money on. And he's like, no, trust me.
Like, trust me, we're gonna create the biggest ego in the entire universe.
You know what's funny is I'm pretty sure that's the like crazy scientist dude's name.
Ego?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so I hope you guys check out that anime. I hope Kevin checks out that
Oh,
anime.
that definitely might be a check out because that's just like you said, taking the simple premise and turning it on its head and making it ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's nice because it's an ongoing one, so you know you can catch up on the first season, start to hit the second season. I think technically the way they're doing it is we're in like episode like 16 or whatever, so it's technically still the first season, but you know they had
Yeah.
that break. Um, yeah, I hope you guys check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's ongoing. There's new stuff that's going to be coming out with it. So, you know, if you feel like I talked about a lot, hey, there's going to be stuff that I haven't even talked about.
Oh yeah.
Because honestly, I breezed through, I think it's like 18 episodes
You
right
see,
there.
that's such an interesting thing when the 18 episodes is hard to condense.
Uh-huh.
Like that much happens in just such a short period of time.
Right. Because it's one of those where it's like, it's a sports anime. So we sit here and it's like, oh, one match could be 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah, well, reminds me of old school like Naruto episodes.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
one fight dragged out for an entire season.
But thank you for watching the Sorry You're Wrong podcast. Make sure to check us out next time we upload our podcast. And yeah, we appreciate you guys watching. I have been Zenith, and this is Kevin.
Thank you for joining us, and as always, see us again real soon in the next episode.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate if you liked, commented, subscribed, followed, all the things on all the platforms. I appreciate you watching this video. It truly does mean a lot to me, and I hope to see you in the next video.